Hey, everybody, thank you, and welcome to today's webinar, Unlocking Your Potential, Finding Your Passion and Perfect Fit at Work. My name is Ryan Tagg. I'm a sales director here at Dominion Payroll, and we're so glad you could join us as we learn how to uncover your natural talents and use them to your advantage with our guest presenter, Hannah Lynn. Hannah is a director of professional development and engagement at Lipscomb University College of Business. And before we dive in, and just a quick reminder, today's session is being recorded. You'll receive a copy of the recording after the presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the questions chat, and we'll be happy to address them. We'll try to take some pauses as we go through. And with that, welcome, Hannah. And you have two very cute dogs, Max and Ruby. Just a little personal info about you, Golden Doodles. And tell us about yourself. We're excited about the presentation today.
Yes, yeah. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm excited to get to speak with you today about kind of finding your passion, your perfect fit at work. A little bit about me. I went to Lipscomb University for both my undergrad and graduate degrees. Um, I live in the Nashville area, and I am really passionate about helping students and people early in their career kind of find what they're passionate about and their perfect fit. So, really excited to dive right in. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. This is me. Like I said, I went to Lipscomb. I did my CliftonStrengths certification recently last year. So excited to share a little bit of insights about how CliftonStrengths can actually benefit as a tool in this kind of self-discovery piece. So really what I want to talk through today is discovering what energizes you, what brings you to that thriving piece in your life, how you can use your Clifton strengths maybe to find that right role, and then really using it as a tool for self discovery. First, I want to start with why passion and fit really matter. And this is where we kind of talk through there is a cost of misalignment and some signs you might be seeing if you feel like you maybe are not in the right fit or not doing the right things in your role is maybe you've started dreading going to work, feeling drained rather than energized by your tasks, and really just not having the chance to do what you do best every day. And Berkeley researchers actually identified a bad job fit as one of the primary drivers of burnout. So definitely worth finding ways to do what you do best. And I'm going to talk through how to do that. So only 32% of people actually agree with the statement that they get to do what they do best every day. And so I want you to be part of that 32%, and hopefully we can grow that over time. But Clifton Strengths is kind of a way we want to do that. And you might not be in the job that you are dreaming to have, but there are really tangible ways you can practice these things right now and tailor your current job to be fulfilling to you and give you enjoyment in life. So I'm happy to talk to you about that. Some signs that you are using your strengths and having that power of alignment is that you're starting to see that you look forward to go to work. You are performing better. You're more creative. You're having an excellent quality of life, more likely to achieve your goals. So these are the evidence pieces that you might be using your strengths well and that you're really thriving. Maybe you're not there yet, and I want to talk through how you can start to identify what it is that really is energizing you. And so there's actually 5 clues to talent. This was actually created by Gallup, Clifton Strengths. And if you haven't taken the Clifton Strengths assessment yet, this is a place where you can kind of start. So one way is to find out what you're yearning to do. So the things that you're naturally drawn to that excite you. Maybe the areas where you are rapidly learning. You pick up new information really quickly. Flow is the things where you become so immersed that you're just losing track of time. Glimpses of excellence is where you're performing at a high level even when you're not having to put in that much effort to do so. And then just satisfaction. What are the things that are bringing you deep fulfillment? So when you're thinking of what you do best, a lot of people have the tendency to think of functional expertise. That is an important aspect, but a lot of times you fail to identify and communicate what are those transferable strengths, the kinds of things that can be applied to any role. There's certain responsibilities maybe that better lend themselves to specific strengths, but I want you to really dive deeper into what are the transferable things that make you thrive. Things like seeing patterns in data, maybe having an unparalleled drive to win or to be first, courage to speak what's on your mind. Maybe you're saying, hey, I really enjoyed mentoring the new person who came to work at our job, or I really enjoyed implementing this new technology. So start with what it is that you really enjoy, you seem to do well naturally, and then get really specific about what it is that you liked about that. That's kind of your clues to talents. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And when I'm doing this, I want you to either write down or just think through, what are these things that I naturally do well? So what tasks do you naturally gravitate towards? When do you feel in the zone when you're at work? What do your colleagues or your friends frequently ask for your help with? And what's one thing that you do at work that really makes time fly? As you're thinking about these, I want you to think through that these are indicators of the areas where you naturally thrive, things that are really giving you energy rather than leaving you feeling drained. I like to think of the difference as it's not something I can or I cannot do. It's just the how that I'm doing it. And for example, if I'm in spreadsheets all day and I'm not a data loving person, if I'm doing that, then I'm going to feel kind of like I'm roller skating through mud. I can definitely get it done, but at the end of the day, I feel so drained and I didn't get that communication ability or ability to connect with my colleagues, which is one of the things that I love so much about my strengths. So think through those things. These are the indicators that I want you to consider. So tying that into the theme of this webinar, which is really unlocking your passion and your perfect fit, I want to talk through how to find your passion. So we've talked through kind of things that you might naturally enjoy doing, and that is this strengths piece of this formula. But a lot of people, you maybe have been lucky enough to figure this out early in life, but a lot of people don't really have a clear plan. So how do you do that? How do you find the sense of living a fulfilling life and having purpose? And it really is this combination of two things. So we've talked about strengths. I want to talk about purpose a little bit more. Understanding, developing, and aiming your strengths is what you do to find outcomes that matter to you. And so Gallup says to identify your purpose, you need to figure out what you take personally, right? What outcomes really matter to you? What frustrates you? What excites you? What do you have a naturally an urge to want to change? Who do you want to make proud? What evokes a response in you, and kind of really try to identify what your why is and tie that in with these things that you're naturally doing so well. And that's kind of the formula that Gallup suggests is how you find your passion. So as we've talked through those things, I want you to just kind of write down maybe a takeaway of a strength that you've identified within yourself, something that you're naturally really great at doing, and then maybe something that kind of gives you that energy or gives you that sense of purpose in what you're doing, what your why is at work. That's that formula for passion. As I move forward, I want to talk a little bit more about how you can leverage strengths for career alignment. So you've had these ideas, things that might be brewing in your brain right now about things that you might naturally do well, but I want to introduce Clifton Strengths as a tool that you might want to use moving forward, whether you choose to or not, about self-discovery. So what is Clifton Strengths? It is an assessment that identifies your uniqueness. And so it pinpoints what you naturally do best, and it is scientifically based. So it's the result of a 60-year study. It's on research that enables you on how you succeed. And it has a really great test, retest reliability. So you can feel really confident in your results here. A little bit of background on how Clifton Strengths started was Don Clifton. He had returned from World War II, and he felt he had just seen enough of negativity and war and wanted to spend the rest of his life really doing good for humankind. And so he decided to start studying psychology. And when he did so, he found that most psychology books were really focused on what's wrong with people. And so he decided he wants to focus on what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them. So when you see Clifton Strengths, you're going to see a pattern of identifying what you do well and finding ways to make that even better rather than fixating on what you might do wrong. So what that means is you do an assessment with 177 questions. It's pretty quick. It's only 30 to 45 minutes. And what they're narrowing down are out of 34 talents that they have discovered, what your top 5 might be. And that's where it gets really practical. But what I want you to know is that a talent is that naturally recurring patterns of thoughts, feeling, or behavior that can really be productively applied. So those things that you were thinking of earlier, those questions I was asking, those are those indicators. And the talent is really just going to put a word to those natural thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So those are things maybe like effortlessly, instinctively starting conversations. Maybe you think in a really timely manner. You see patterns in data, consistently have a positive outlook on life. And again, I just want to remind you, this is things that you do. It's how you do them. It's not if you can or cannot do them. So remember that. Maybe if I get my report and I don't have a lot of high strategic thinking themes, doesn't mean I'm not able to learn, right? It just means that doing those things might be something that's going to drain me more over time than give me energy. So when you get your results, you can be really confident that these are so unique to you. And the odds that someone has your same top 5 talents in the exact same order is 1 in 33.4 million. So this is a really great way that you can communicate what you're naturally good at, show your unique contribution to the workplace, and really communicate that. So be confident in your results. Know that they are very specific to you.
Hannah, can I pause you for a second? That is a wild stat. Let me just say, like, that's crazy to me. I'm excited to take this, and I just wanted to, sorry, I had to stop you one sec.
I
That is
love
a
that.
wild
I'm
stat to me.
excited.
Sorry.
Yes.
Keep
Yes.
going.
Okay. All right. So glad this is resonating. For the people listening, you've identified what your talent might be, right? And then you hear these people calling them strengths. And so there's a gap between those two things that you'll want to identify. And what's the missing piece? Investment. Okay. So you want to spend time practicing. You're not going to just because you're naturally able to do it. Maybe you're not utilizing that potential, right? So maybe I have high futuristic in my talents in my top 5. So if I'm not giving myself that time to really plan for the future, then I'm not flexing that talent. So just the same as if you get a gym membership and then you don't go, you're not going to see those results. Okay. So identify your talents, spend some time really reflecting on them, seeing how you can apply them in your current role in your personal life. And then that's where you're going to start seeing these improvements and really starting to thrive rather than survive through these situations. Okay. But where I want to get the most practical with you is in the buckets that each of these 34 talents fall into. So you'll see them listed in bold under each category, but Clifton Strengths calls these domains. And this is, like I said, the way to get really practical about your results. Once you take the assessment, it will go ahead and tell you which domain you lead with, okay? And that's which bucket you have the most intensity of strengths with. So I want to give you some practical examples of what these might mean for you and how you can really use these on team contributions and personal contributions. So with executing, these are the people who have strengths that revolve around translating ideas into actions. So maybe you're the person who effectively manages tasks. You're really driving outcomes. People high in executing talents are known for their ability to get things done and with precision. So I love partnering with people like this on projects because they're the person who is keeping that checklist, making sure everyone's on board. Maybe you're really good at project management if that's you. For my influencing people, this is people who maybe have identified themselves as a natural born leader. It's someone who really cares about making an impact, persuading and leading others. They are adept at selling ideas, really bringing visions to life, typically really great communicators, networkers, kind of taking control of a situation. Relationship building somewhat speaks for itself, but this is someone who is centered around creating a strong, cohesive team. And people who excel in this domain, I like to think of as the glue that really holds teams together. So you might have a couple people who are really high in executing and really high in strategic thinking, but they're not necessarily collaborating that well. The relationship builders are going to make sure that they are cohesive and they're on the same page and there's harmony between those groups. Lastly, strategic thinking. This is where the magic of planning, analyzing, and visioning happens, right? So those who excel in this domain are kind of the masterminds who can cut through the chaos, really create plans and navigate risks and complexities with ease. They're the person who can really help you discover what it is you need to do to make the right decisions moving forward. So these are really great to have on your team. As we go forward, you've got these ideas of talents, of domains, but how can you actually get really practical about applying them currently in your career? That's what I want to cover. So I have this handout, would love to provide it to you somehow, but it's called Practical Strengths. And what that looks like, here's 4 examples, but it tells you based on a general talent theme, and if you get your top 5, you can kind of look through and find yours, but it tells you where the environment is in which you thrive. So like I said, it's not a specific job. I want you to think of how you can mold these talents to fit within your current role or the goal that you're currently pursuing. So communication, you might thrive in roles that require speaking or engaging an audience or really having that connection with people. Analytical, you might excel in problem solving, data-driven roles. Activators, these are people who are quick to action and can really innovate when needed. Connectedness, thriving when there's opportunity to be in community and help bring teams together. So I want you to look over that once you've identified what your talents might be, and then see where there are current opportunities for you to really lean into those talents and flex those talents. Spend that time investing in them, and then really seeing yourself go from that drained state where you're maybe feeling burned out to starting to have kind of life back in your work again and feel energized by it. So I want to leave you with 4 practical steps, action steps that you might want to consider doing. Number 1 is just identifying what your strengths are, whether that's through the CliftonStrengths Assessment or if that's asking your friends and family for feedback on what are those natural things that you think that I do really well, because those people know you very well and they should be able to give you some great quick feedback ideas. And then I want you to analyze your current role. What are you doing day in, day out? And see how well your talents or the things you've identified that you love doing align with what you are currently doing. And you might want to seek feedback in that area too. And then that next piece is so important. You can know them all day long and you can want to do them all day long, but you need to communicate those strengths to the person in charge or to your supervisor or to your colleagues so that you can really start using them, whether it's on a team or in your leadership. So just explore opportunities to incorporate them. And if you take the CliftonStrengths Assessment, you should have some really great terminology to go along with it when you're having those conversations. So I think that's one piece where it can be very helpful. And then lastly, just exploring opportunities to further develop and apply your strengths. Like I said, you want to find ways to flex them, essentially like going to the gym and building on those muscles. The more you get into the practice of it, the more you're going to find you're leaning into those strengths rather than maybe what your weaknesses might be and trying to improve upon those. Instead, you want to really work on maximizing your strengths and becoming the best version that you can be using those. So I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes on this, and it's just start today by recognizing what makes you come alive. Take small steps towards aligning your career with your passion and your strengths. So it doesn't have to be this massive career change. Maybe you are really needing to stay in this current job for a multitude of reasons, whatever that might be. Just start today. Identify one thing that you can make a change with that's going to start bringing that energy back to your life, giving you that chance of having a more excellent quality of life. And I hope that you might consider doing CliftonStrengths to do that. If not, there are so many other ways that you can identify those. But I'm excited to talk with you more and answer your questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. I just
Yeah.
want a quick note. Don Clifton looks like such a nice guy in that photo. Like, might as well be Mr. Rogers. He looks
Yes.
so friendly.
Yes.
So yes, I want to take the test just because he looks like a nice guy. But we do have some questions.
Yeah.
Can you, so when you take Nice Man Don Clifton's assessment, can you retake it after it's initially been completed?
Yes, so you can retake it. Generally, it's advised not to, just because it has such a high test retest reliability rate. So it's really going to be pretty stable of results over time. So the only time in which they might advise you to retake it if you have already taken it is maybe if you took it maybe before you were 18 years old, or maybe that and it's been 10 years or so since you've taken it, right? So if it's been a really long amount of time, you've had a lot of personal development and changes, it might be worth retaking. But generally, when people take the test and they retake it, all they'll see is maybe a different ordering of the same top 5 strengths. So you should feel pretty confident if you have taken it in the past to just revisit those current results.
Gotcha. And this, you kind of answered this, but I'll ask it just in case.
Mhm.
But do people's strengths change over time?
Yeah, yeah. And so what I have seen in conversations, coaching conversations, the majority of what I see is that they are just doing that reordering. And primarily that leading domain, that bucket which you fall into, is really going to be consistent over time as well.
Gotcha. Thank you. And is the Clifton Strengths Assessment the same as a personality test? I know you and I were talking about the personality
Yeah,
test before
yeah,
this.
yeah. So we
Is
were
like
kind
an
of talking
enneagram
about.
and not the same or similar? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So I have seen some students have this discovery where they're like, oh my gosh, I have high command and I'm also the like challenger on the Enneagram. So I think they kind of go hand in hand, and you can take relations between those and see what the specific correlation is. But it is a little bit different than a personality test because this is really a performance-based assessment, really just identifying what your talents are rather than a broad this is your personality. So it's going to be different than if you've taken maybe Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or something like that. You should get very different results and kind of different applications that you would have from a personality test. But I love any tool for self-discovery, and I think it's great in that way.
Great. And how long does the assessment take?
Yeah, so it's only going to take about 30 to 45 minutes of your time, depending on how quickly you answer the question. So it gives you 177 questions and gives you a 20-second limit on each of those. So it's about just going off your instincts. Like I said, it's identifying natural feelings, thoughts, behaviors. So it should come pretty intuitively to you. And you can just kind of think about life in general. It doesn't have to be specifically what you're thinking about, for work or for life. Just kind of answer those off your gut instinct to get your best results.
Got it. And I guess a follow-up to that, is there value in understanding what, I like the way this question is
Yeah.
phrased, it's so positive, what your lesser strengths are?
Yes. So the idea with Clifton Strengths is that we shouldn't spend too much time focusing on what's wrong with us or what your bottom talents are. But the idea is that you want to focus on improving what you're already good at and then manage your weaknesses. So obviously there's going to be times in my current role where I'm going to have to do something that I'm not naturally talented at. It might be in one of my weakness areas. My bottom strength is actually restorative. So I am not the person who loves to just like identify the tiny little bugs and errors in something, but sometimes my job calls for that. So you have to have kind of like the knowledge, skill, and practice to go along with whatever your job is. Um, but really just focusing on managing that, maybe leaning to a trusted colleague, asking them for feedback on something to kind of double check your work in that area if you're not super confident in it. But yeah, kind of the idea is managing those weaknesses and leaning on someone if you need some additional help in that area.
Got it. And do you have any recommendations for the best way a team can share and celebrate each other's strengths?
I love that. Um, I think so. One thing that we do currently at Lipscomb University, which I think is really fun, we actually list out each person's top 5 strengths on their office store. And so when you're going into someone's office, I love this example. I have one colleague who has all 5 top strengths are in relationship building. So when I'm going in there, I'm just going to pause first, ask her how her week is, ask her how her family is, get all that background info. And I have another colleague who's all strategic thinking. So like when I go to talk to him, he's going to ask me a million questions. So I want to know all the facts before I go and talk. So I think one simple way is to just like make intentional choices to engage with those certain talents that they have or domains. Um, and then maybe just giving them a shout out like, hey, I saw that Macy did a great job problem solving, and I saw that restorative talent in her. So really want to shout her out for that. So that's one practical way, and I think it's a really nice touch.
Great. And just I guess working in payroll and HR kind of services, I've gotten a lot more requests for some kind of like kudos system or feedback system
Yeah.
as far as like solutions that we offer. So we have a few engagement tools that can help with that too. But I love that kind of feedback. And it's important to acknowledge when people do certain things well and
Yeah.
any kind of tools you can provide to do that. I have one more question. This is
Hmm.
a personal question. I saw one of the talents that you identifies like when things feel effortless, it's really easy. You don't need to
Hmm.
work really hard to do it. That one kind of freaked me out because I was like, well, I don't want to seem like I'm lazy, you know what I mean? Just because something's easy. So how do you manage that if something does come like very naturally to you and doesn't
Yeah.
require much work and there's like kind of an anxiety associated with people won't think I'm working hard enough or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, when something comes so naturally to you, it just does feel easy. Doesn't mean that you're not putting in as much effort. I think maybe just communicating with someone and saying, like, hey, I really like this. Maybe I can handle more of what that was and less of this thing that feels a little bit more draining to me. So I think that's where the communication piece really comes into play and saying, like, this was something that I was able to do way easier than these other projects because it became so innate to me and what I'm naturally talented at. So maybe leaning into those projects more and just communicating that that was something that you really were able to get in the zone with and love doing it.
Great. Well, I think we'll give everybody one more one more second for questions. Anybody else have any questions? These are all really great, engaging questions, and I thought that
Yeah.
was all.
Thank you so
Uh,
much for
re-
engaging and asking them.
yeah, it's very fascinating stuff. I definitely want to take this now. I'm actually gonna go to HR and be like, we all need to take this now. See
I
if I'll
love
put
it.
it out to everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, good.
yeah, because I think it's really valuable. Yeah, I was
Right.
about to also ask like, what can you do to become more passionate about work? But I think what you just described, I was about to ask. I'm like, she just laid it out. Is figuring
Yeah.
out, I guess, what you're passionate about in the first place, and then
Yes.
you can kind
Yeah.
of move towards it. But
Yeah. Tying your
um,
role into the things that just give you that energy and really, excite you, push you forward. That's really the goal.
yeah, absolutely. Well, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through that. And I think we've gotten through all the questions, but if anybody has any follow-ups, we'll send out a recording of this. I'm sure Hannah's contact information will be on there. I'm sure, I don't mean to speak for you, but I'm sure she
Yeah.
wouldn't mind reaching out and answering questions too. But again, my name is Ryan Tagg, joined by Hannah Lynn, and thank you all so much for your time and really appreciate it, Hannah.
Thank you. I really appreciated it. Have a good
All right,
rest of your day.
bye.